not to put you on the hot seat right after that, but the next question is, as an athlete, what are your thoughts on the Brittany Griner being held in Russia too?
Oh my wow.
Do up to the ding ding dong day. Do up to the ding ding dong day.
Not gonna lie, I was half expecting you to be another no-show.
Oh my God, this guy doesn't have a real job, clearly.
No, I don't. Not yet. Not yet, at least. Not yet. Also, I must apologize if you can hear muffled accented English in the background. My roommates are on the other side of my wall watching Thursday Night Football, and they are very, very heavily invested in it.
So if you didn't catch that, Sebo's roommates are in the other room watching Thursday Night Football. So they're going to get a little bit rowdy. Nothing wrong with that. We love when the boys get rowdy. So let's turn it into a little bit of a drinking game. So grab your nearest beer, grab some wine. Hey, grab some water. Nothing wrong with staying hydrated for the boys. Anyways, anytime you hear them cheer, gotta take a drink. Anytime you hear the word Rochester, gotta take a drink. Anytime you hear the words 7th or 8th grade, gotta take a drink. Hey, staying hydrated for the boys there's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely nothing wrong with that. So 2023 is going to be a massive year for the brand. Come follow along, boys. Come follow along. Let's get into the interview. We welcome you to TWI Interviews. I'm your host, Ike. Along with Matt, we introduce Sebastian Vile, University of Wisconsin, men's veteran tennis player. Sebastian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you, gentlemen?
We're doing
well.
Doing really good. So you're commonly known as Sebo. That's kind of your nickname. How did the nickname come about? Do people like just in your everyday life call you Sebo as well?
So that's actually kind of a funny story. I mean, when I was younger, like infant younger, I obviously couldn't say my full name. So like all I could get out really was an abbreviation of it. And I think I was trying to say Seba because obviously Sebastian, so you spell my name. But my parents kind of just heard an O. So kind of ever since then, my dad especially would call me that. And he was the one who would, not to say that my mom wasn't involved, but like he would always like take me to tournaments, take me to lessons, all these things. And so he would call me that in front of my coaches and, my fellow training partners. So then they kind of picked it up, and then my friends picked it up, and it just kind of like gained traction from there. And pretty much everybody calls me that, like, except for my professors in college. My high school teachers would call me that, which was kind of weird, but my collegiate professors do not call me that. But so pretty much everyone that I know in a non-academic setting calls me that.
Yeah. I remember when I was probably a junior in high school, I think you were in 7th grade, and you were kind of like the talk of the town. I remember I was like extremely blessed to be kind of in a generational gap between, it seemed like maybe like 10 years before you, there were some really, really good tennis players. Eric Free, Thomas Nath, who went to Rochester Mayo. And then there's like a little bit of a gap where there wasn't anyone like insane.
Right.
So I kind of fit in there. And then like you, Nick Aney, what was your expectation there with like them being so good and like you kind of like going into that like great school?
Yeah, I mean, so I think to start with, like you talk about that, like that gap of like 10 years where there was like just this core of like unbelievable players who played at the rack where I'd also trained at. And I remember like growing up, I didn't really know anything about high school tennis or anything like that, but I would see these guys train like all the time. Like this is the way it was structured. Like I would come into the group that was like from like 5 to 7, and then these guys would practice from like 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. Like, and I remember sometimes like I would stay after and just sit in the bleachers and just watch for 2 hours, just totally in awe. Like these guys were hitting just unbelievable shots. And then as I got older, I kind of understood that like these guys some went to Mayo, some went to Century, like, and they were friends, but there was also like that rivalry component. And so I remember when I got to high school tennis in 7th grade, like I remember like one of the first couple practices we had, like we didn't hit a single ball because Minnesota spring, there's still snow on the ground when we start. So that was a lot of fun. But I remember being explained to like the history behind, like Mayo especially has a very rich history of sporting success in pretty much every sport. And so it didn't really sink in for a couple of years, but there, when you play for Mayo, especially, you're playing for like an entire community that is used to success, and there's kind of an expectation, especially in tennis in recent years, that like we're going to be competing for that section, even state championship. Um, so I remember like coming after those guys was like, I felt like somehow I had to, accomplish more than they did, which was pretty big shoes to fill. And so I realized later on that like it wasn't about trying to, be better than them. It was just about to continue what they had built on. So I feel very, very blessed to have been part of that culture and part of that legacy.
So how many state titles did you guys win? Like
As a
'cause
team,
you,
zero. When
zero.
I was there, we didn't win a single one. We didn't win a single one.
Did they win one right before?
They won one the year before my 6th grade year. They won one, yeah, and then I think like my 4th or 5th grade year, they also won another one.
So did you ever play on the team with Ingrid when she was on the
No,
team?
no.
Okay, so
She
that would
was
have
on the
been
team
1
the
year
year
before you?
before I got there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At one point, you went down to Texas. You went
Yeah.
to like John Newcomb Tennis
Mhm.
Academy
Yep.
down there. Was that
Yeah.
just for 1 year? Like, when was that in your high school,
It
middle school?
was during a summer. It wasn't even a full year. To be honest, this is like my little soapbox speech
Yeah.
for all tennis parents who might be watching here. So I think especially in the United States, there's this kind of like, not expectation, but there's this like path that in order to be great at anything really, but tennis especially, you're not going to find success in a state that isn't Florida, California, Texas, maybe even New York. So like, growing up, you're fed that path of like, if you want to like get really good, you go to an academy or somewhere. And it's not for everybody. That's the thing. Like, great example actually is one of my good friends, Hunter Heck, who won the Easter Bowl 12s, moves to Florida. And for him, I would say is a success, because if you look at where he is now, like, man, that guy's unbelievable tennis player. And you can't tell me that going to Florida didn't help that. But I think me personally, like I just didn't know if that was going to be the right thing for me or not. And I was fortunate enough that I had parents who were willing to support that idea, and they were willing to help me give that a try. And in the end, I just didn't like it, like to the point where I was like, I cannot do this like ever again. Like, this is not for me. And I found a lot of success in Minnesota, and that was great. But I think the moral of what I'm trying to say here is that like, you absolutely do not have to send your kid to Florida, Texas, etc. to have them achieve success. Like, if you set them up in the right environment and instill good values in them, they're going to have a ton of success wherever they are. So it was a great experience to kind of see like what basically having your life be tennis as a high schooler would be like. And I did not like it one bit. I didn't like it. So it wasn't a very long experiment, but ultimately I'm grateful that I did it.
You come back then, and then you just go right back into the, high school season, whatnot. So like coming back from the tennis academy, so were you then a sophomore then? Or
Oh God, I might have been a freshman or sophomore at the time.
So like, do you fit right back into the team, like easy coming back? Like you were just gone for the summer, like easy meshing back, was it like a little bit competition? Like, oh shoot, Sebo's back. Like this is gonna be tough.
I mean, me personally, like I tried to keep it like nothing had ever happened. Like, because I think part of me was just like, that was such a horrible experience. I don't want to dwell on it too much.
Sure.
And plus I think high school tennis has that added benefit of like, you get to be on a team. Like, tennis is such an individual sport that when you get the chance to be on a team, it's the best. Like I always tell people who ask, like, the best memories that you'll make in high school or college tennis are almost always not going to be on the court. They're going to be on bus rides, practices, like team dinners, like those are the moments that like really make it special. And so, I mean, a bunch of these guys, like they were good tennis players, but they weren't taking it like as seriously as I was, like they were more like recreational, like local tournament players, whereas I like, was playing national tournaments and all this. So for them, like they just kind of acted like, oh, he's just doing what he needs to get better. So they were actually really great about it. They acted like nothing had happened, and that was just fine by me.
When you were kind of like junior and senior year, you're obviously one of the top players in the state. Did you win a state title as an individual, or were
Yeah,
you?
I did.
So won a state title. So that's like an insane feat to have on the record book. Having such a good success, like when you're a junior and senior year, like when you're viewing colleges and stuff like that, like what's on your like options? Like, are you, because of like your experience down in Texas, like, are you trying to stay near home, like near Minnesota? Like, is that kind of like your reason for staying home for those first couple of years?
Yeah, I'd say that played a part in it. I, it's kind of like that classic cliche, like high schoolers, they always say like, oh, I can't wait to go to college, get away from home, like live on my own. Like, and that was true. Like, I was looking forward to, the new experiences and all that. But at the same time, like, you kind of don't realize how much you enjoy and how comforting it is to be close to home until you actually like aren't close to home. So that was definitely a part in it. I think the bigger part though was just like, I'd grown up a Minnesota fan. Like I was born, raised in Minnesota, lived in Rochester my whole life. I mean, every major tournament, maybe not these days, but like back in when I was a junior, like everything was at baseline, level 3s, level 2s, like everything was at baseline. So like you play there so much, you get to know the facility, you kind of walk around campus in between matches, like you understand what it's like. And, for me, the added benefit was I got to know Jeff and his family really, really well through my friendship with Gavin. So there was that natural rapport there already. So, my parents always tell me that I'm very impulsive, which they're right. But that's not the point. The point is like they've kind of told me, don't rush your college decision. Like there's lots of schools out there, like look around, take the time to look around. And I remember the first day, so September 1st of your junior year was when coaches are first allowed to reach out to prospective players. And September 1st, Jeff sent me an email saying, let's meet. I want to talk to you about having you on my team. And to this day, I still have a saved screenshot in my phone of the draft email that I had typed back. And I said, no need. Where do I sign, basically? And I remember after the fact, after I committed after about a year, I told my parents this, and they said, oh, we would have been prepared to commit right away as well. And I was like, seriously? But no, like it was good. I think my problem / blessing really was I didn't really reach ranking wise. I didn't really reach like the peaks until the summer of my like going into my freshman year of college. So by then, I guess you could say it was a little bit too late to like seriously think about like other top schools. But it was fine. I had Minnesota locked up, and I was like, that's good enough for me.
So were you viewing Wisconsin as a potential option coming out of high school as well? Or was it like, hey, when the situation arose, after your junior year, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, hey, like, obviously I got to pick a different school. Like I want tennis to be part of my, collegiate experience. Did they ever have like an impression on you early, or is it kind of like after the fact when you started looking, and chose your eventual, spot?
So I hope Danny Westerman, my current head coach, isn't watching this right now. But if he ever does, I will find the non-responded email that I did send to you. So I sent an email to like basically all of the Big Ten except for Ohio State. Like, just a feeler basically. And Danny, I swear he did not reply to my initial email, which he might have missed it. Like, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, obviously. Like, I'm sure he gets a lot of emails as a college coach. Like, that's understandable. So initially I knew pretty much nothing. the only experiences I had were when like we played them. But you know, it's always kind of ironic. Like in almost any other sport, Minnesota and Wisconsin are like this, and in tennis we were like this as well. But they were also just like really good people. So it was like a friendly rivalry. Like we got to know them a little bit. Like we were friends outside of the dual match setting, which I wouldn't necessarily say the same thing about like, an Iowa or like a Northwestern. Like it was a different type of vibe to those matches. So I knew that the team was like good guys and like all that, but I didn't really get a chance to like really research and, seriously consider it until I had to enter the portal and find a new school.
Yeah, what was the I mean, I know we had Nikita on kind of talking a little bit about the Iowa situation.
Right.
What was kind of just from a player's perspective? I mean, obviously in Minnesota we've seen kind of the Star Tribune articles on what happened and all that stuff. But from a player's perspective, like just kind of take us through what that was like finding out, and then kind of what your process was of finding another school.
Yeah. So the day before we were told, we had a compliance meeting on Zoom, and Mark Coyle joined that meeting for his customary like 3 minutes. He's gave his spiel of like, can't wait to watch you guys compete. Like, here's my cell number. You ever need anything, like shoot me a text, all this. So we're like, okay, whatever. So the next day we're sitting at lunch after practice. It's like 1:30 maybe. And Jeff, our coach, just sends in our team group chat. He goes, Zoom meeting 2:45. You must be on it. And that was it.
Wow.
So we were like, okay, that's a little weird. And so I remember going back to our apartment, and I lived with Jackson Allen. And as I'm sitting on the couch, like finding the link, and I hear him say, when we log onto this Zoom, we had better see like football, basketball, like if like other those types of sports on this. If we see like track, wrestling, or even like gymnastics, like we could be in trouble. And the thought had never even crossed my mind up until that point. And I remember just having this like sinking feeling of like, uh-oh, like is this? And I remember opening up the Zoom, and what do you know? It's like track and gymnastics just flooding the Zoom. And that's when I knew I was like,
Sebo, so who's telling you that? Like who's putting that into your mind? Like, hey, if we see track and gymnastics,
that was
we
Jackson
might...
Allen. That was
Jackson.
purely
So
Jackson
Jackson's
Allen.
like, how does Jackson Allen get a whiff of what's happening then? Intuition?
Yeah, almost certainly. Jackson is a very like intuitive person. He looks at what's going on around him, and he kind of is a step ahead of everybody else sometimes, especially when it came to this stuff, because he was following the Iowa stuff closely.
Dang.
So he just had a sixth sense.
That's
And
insane to
like it had never even crossed
have
my
that
mind
feeling.
up until he had said that. Like I thought this was gonna be, I don't know, something like COVID related, because we had just come back, we were all wearing masks, like maybe it was like I thought it was anything but what was about to happen. And so I open up the Zoom, and everyone's kind of like, why are we all here? Like, what's going on? And then Mark Coyle joins, and he says, we're very sorry, but we're going to discontinue these 3 sports at the end of the year. Don't bother fundraising. There's nothing you can do. I'm going to speak to the media in 15 minutes, and we will honor scholarships and blah, 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 blah. And then he just left.
Jeez.
So like that was it. And Shane Wiskus was sitting there with a bunch of trophies behind him on his camera. And I just very, very clearly remember him like not saying anything. And then all of a sudden he just went, "Excuse me," at like the top of his lungs, but Marco was already gone.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was an experience. I would not recommend it for anybody.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
That's like super like
I mean,
know,
he just
that's-
left. Like, he didn't even bother to say like any questions. He just left.
Damn.
Wow.
How has your kind of like transition to Wisconsin been? Like, has it been tough or like fit in pretty well with the guys? Like, kind of being later in your college career,
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be a little bit harder than it ended up being. I mean, the guys, like I said, like I'd met them before, so like it wasn't like I was meeting brand new faces for the very first time. Like they all knew of me, I knew of them. But they were super welcoming. They, you know, they even all like when I committed, they all texted me individually like, "Congrats! Like we're so excited to have you." Like so, I think that was really important for just like getting off on the right foot, and they've been great. I really can't complain. As well, like academically as well, like going from Big Ten university to another Big Ten university, like I was pretty much exactly where I was for graduation purposes. So, I mean, aside from the color scheme and how far away from home I am, it really hasn't been that much difference.
We're a podcast, talk show, interview. We're for the common man, so
Exactly.
we have to take those questions from the everyday person, people wondering, hey, what's Sebo doing? So, just a couple hours before the interview, dished out a little question. Hey, what do we have? What are the questions for Sebo? So interesting question from Jager, Mr. Tennis, longtime fan of TWI. So
Okay.
are you considered a clinch god? You had 4 clinches in your 2021 to 2022 season against Drake, Western Michigan, Nebraska, and Illinois. Do you consider yourself a clinch god?
Oh boy. I wouldn't use that term or that, that label. What I will say is one of the few reasons that that's the case where I'm usually the last match on is because almost every single game I play goes to deuce. It's actually absurd. Whether you can say that's poor serving or great returning, it's kind of both.
I mean,
But I'll deal with you in a second. But I jokingly in high school, I semi-serious, semi-jokingly had I had a saying, right? And this is so unbelievably cringe to say out loud now, but I kind of gotta. It was when the game's on the line, I'm on my prime. Like that was just like my my
God.
thing. I know, right? It's just like
That's like a Mayo thing to
it's
say.
like it's words to live by. Hey, it's words to live by. And I kind of hate to play this card, but are you going to tell me that it doesn't work?
Hey, you can't argue with results, but my
So,
God.
yeah, I wouldn't say clinch god. I would just refer them back to that phrase.
There you go. So like kind of when you get to those deuce points, and obviously like you have a winning record. You had a winning record at Minnesota. Last year you had a winning record at Wisconsin. So like very much you win a lot of your matches. Like so Da Bomb has a question. How do you not get tight or tentative when you're playing those big matches as the match progresses?
So good question. I think first of all, it's important to recognize that college tennis is so unique and so different to any other tennis environment that you can find, with the no ad, with the team aspect, with hecklers behind the court. It's so much different that you have to approach it with a different mindset. And I think what comes from that is, I'll never forget, Jeff told me this. He goes, like these deuce points, these 30-all points, like, they matter, obviously, like every point matters. But if you think about it in one match, how many deuce points do you think there are, especially when you're playing? I'm like, well, there's probably a fair few. And so he says, well, obviously you want to win as many as you can. Like you don't just like tank them on purpose. But, if you lose 2-all deuce, you might get 3-2 deuce, and all of a sudden you're back to 3-all. Like, so it's important to have the mindset of like, yes, some points might mean more than others, but if you treat them as if like they're no bigger than the next point, then you'll start to see like, oh wow, like maybe I'm not feeling as tentative on my swing on this deuce point. And then I would also add like having a plan before the point. So like if you're serving and the guy gets to pick the side, so it kind of depends. But I'd recommend having like a favorite play on both sides so that you're prepared for whichever side he picks, and you execute that play. And if he comes up with a great shot, okay, good for him. And if you miss, that's gonna happen. Like we're human beings, we miss tennis shots. So I think just giving yourself ample opportunity to try and win the point, and then if the guy comes up with something too good, so be it.
Do you like dubs or singles more?
I think I like doubles more just because it's faster. It relies way more on positive energy. Not that singles doesn't, but like get off to a slow start, you drop an energy in doubles, 1 set to 6, no ad goes by like that. So
Yeah.
I think I like the intensity and the quickness more of doubles.
Yeah. So I remember watching you when you were like super young, just because like I was at my junior year and senior year, you were 7th and 8th grade. That's kind of our overlap in terms of like your middle school and my high school playing career.
Right.
But the next time that I saw you was out in Bismarck when I had graduated college. You must have been probably like one of your early years of college, but I'm pretty sure you're playing with Gavin Young out there.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I just remember very vividly that like how much energy you guys brought to the doubles court, and like it was so fast paced that it was like it's like hard for a Division III tennis player such as myself to like, dang, like that's like the normal pace of a D1 match. Like when you're playing with Gavin, like if you're playing with Gavin, are you like the best team in the Big Ten? Like where would you kind of compete if you two teamed up?
Wow.
I mean, listen, collegiate doubles, especially 1 set to 6, no ad, like anybody can beat anybody. Like that's just kind of the way it goes. I like to think that, I used to tell Gav all the time, like before he committed to Minnesota originally, I used to tell him like, hey, you come to Minnesota, like I will march right into your father's office the day after you commit. And I will say, listen, you put us two together, you don't worry about us. We'll be all Americans. Like you got a point basically. Just worry about the other two. Part of me was like, yes, I fully believe that, but also part of me was just trying to like, do a little gamesmanship and try and get him to come to Minnesota because I kind of figured he was going to be quite good. But no, I really like playing with him. He's got a really good return. He's got great serve, obviously, and he's tall. He covers a lot of the court. Great overhead. So, I think we'd be a better team than average in the Big Ten, but anybody can beat anybody. So it's like on our day, we could beat the number 1 team in the country, and on our day, we could lose to the 600th team in the country. That's just how doubles works.
Or you could get underhand aced by a 90 PR.
Yeah, that is also a possibility. That is a possibility. Yeah, I don't really know what to say to that, to be perfectly honest, but it is a possibility. Sure.
You're
never gonna let that go, are you?
No, never.
Do you want us to write that on your tombstone?
Oh,
I underarm ace Gavin Young.
100%. So dirty.
I'm like kind of rattled because like it popped into my mind, but like you beat me to it, Matt. So I was like, I feel like you should be like shamed for like that, for like bringing your own underhand serve when I'm here to assist you, man.
Just a bit of Gavin. I mean, you can't be that good and get underhand ace by a 9 UTR. I mean, what a joke.
Speaking of, actually, do you remember when we played in the section final? Do you remember that?
Yeah. So I want to ask you.
Yeah,
that's my question. So I want to kind of bring it back. So let's bring it back to your 7th grade year, my junior year. I hadn't heard of you, as a 6th grader or 5th grader too much until I knew you're going to be coming into Section 1 AA tennis. And I think Chase Roseth must have said something to me.
Oh, Chase.
And I'm sure he's like, dude, this guy's like sick. Or I'm sure he said something like that. I don't exactly remember, but I remember like looking at your lineup, and I remember you playing like 2 all year or something like that. And you won like every match. So, and then we played, I think in like the section quarterfinals or something like that. Like early in subsections. And I think I beat you pretty good.
Pretty good. You beat me 1-0. You hit a kick serve that went over my head.
It was 1-0. I remember you were very small at the time. Like,
yes,
pretty new to high school tennis, whatnot. But then, so fast forward to the next year. I'm pretty sure Chase Roseth is in my ear before we play in the section finals. And Chase Roseth's like, yo, Sebo's sick now. Like, you're not going to beat him. You're not going to beat him 0-1. And then I'm pretty sure he's like, I'm pretty sure you told Chase or something like, I broke him last year. I know I got this or something like on that one game that you broke. You're like, no, like I broke him. Like I know I can break him now. So it was like that one game that like got you over the hump in your mindset. And then we play this section final against each other, and we have a fucking battle. We have a battle. I think
war.
I won the first set, maybe you won the second set, and then we're in the third set. And I want to see what you think about how that match finished up. In my mind, I've been kind of replaying that every few years. Like, hey, like, it's a good memory, or it's a memory, I should say.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you thought about that whole thing.
Yeah. So I mean, like my 7th grade year, I remember like I played you in the section quarters, and I'm thinking like this guy's huge. Like, but like given how small I was and like the level I was playing at, like I wasn't scared of like playing a big guy. Like that had never intimidated me. And then I just got like, that was arguably one of the more handily times I've ever been beaten in my life. Like just, I had no answer. And I did remember breaking you, and I was like, oh, I can do this, you know, like, come on. And yeah, that was short-lived. But then the next year, I remember thinking like, okay, it's indoors, it's at the rack, where like the rack was like my haven. Like I felt like I could have beaten anybody there. So I was like, okay, like I have nothing to lose. And the way that high school tennis worked with like the true second match and going to state, like I kind of figured that I kind of was going to be in, even if I lost, without having to play the true second. And that's what ended up happening. So I felt like I could like swing away. Like, you know, I still had more matches. I was going to go to the state tournament. So that was an added, you know, factor that I think contributed to my performance. And it was great match. And I remember like I had temper problems, still do, but you know, like I did, you know, like there's no getting away from that. Like I was just a competitive, emotional kid. So I think third set, like maybe I got like a warning, or maybe it was second set. I got like a warning and then eventually a point. So I remember kind of like being like, okay, like kind of on thin ice here. But and then the third set, I had to have gotten a game penalty at some point, right?
Yeah.
So I remember we had a rule on our Mayo tennis team, like if you get pissed, if you hit the ball onto your side of the court and then over to their side, like in anger, when like you get broken, for example, that's what we would call a code, and you'd have to run. And I remember specifically 3-4 down in the third set, I'm serving. I get broken. I play a terrible point, and I get broken. I'm thinking, oh, damn it. So I take the ball and I do exactly what I just described, thinking like, okay, it's bad, but like I can probably get away with it, you know, probably. And I didn't. The official was at the net, and he gave me a code, game penalty, game set match, done. And I remember thinking like, oh crap, my dad's gonna kill me. Like that was on me about that stuff. So like that was the first thought. So I aimlessly walked to the bench and just sat there. And then all of a sudden I like, you know how like you can feel somebody sitting next to you? I felt that. And so I turn, and you're just sitting there, and you like look me dead in the face, like super serious. And you're just like, bro, like you got to get this under control. Like you're so good that like you don't need to be doing this. Like you could be so good. Just you got to figure out this like temper stuff, and you'll be so good. I promise. And I remember sitting there like, who is this guy? Like he's like giving me like the best pep talk I've ever gotten in my life after beating me. And I just remember thinking like, oh my Lord, he's right, isn't he? And then I was like, wow, like this guy is like something else. Like, and I've never forgotten them, and I never will forget that moment. And sometimes I even like catch myself like replaying parts of it because I remember it so vividly. Like just you were sitting there, you had this like such passionate look in your eye. I was like, wow, like he really means it. It's not like after a match that you get beaten and the guy's like you're a good player, man, but like you can tell he doesn't really mean it. Like you meant every word, and that has stuck with me even to this day. So that's why I was curious. That's why I wanted to ask you, but beat me to it. But that's what I remember. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of the details, but I know I'm right on this.
That's pretty much 100% right. Yeah. No, that's exactly how it like went down. That was like such an emotional match because like I think to give everyone a little bit of context, you were so young at that time, 8th grade, and then I was a senior. Like that's very like that's hard for, a senior to wrap their mind around like, hey, I could
Yeah.
get beat by this,
Yeah.
Kid, this like
Yeah. That's
prodigy
what I
kid.
was. That's what I was.
So like I remember going into the Final Four, and how the coaches decide is all the coaches get together and then decide the seeds of those Final Four.
Yeah, they
So
vote essentially.
my coach was an Australian guy, super chill,
Yeah.
Coach Kavanagh. Then you had your coach who had like a ton of success. And then it was Lakeville North, Lakeville South.
Yeah, those
Chase
four.
Roseth, Sean Kelly. And I remember going into that weekend and I was like, Coach Kavanagh, like, because I think you were slated to be the 4 seed because you played 2 all year. And I was, or something like that. Or you, like, that's what they thought. And I was like, Coach Kavanagh, like, there's no way I should have to play Sebo first. Like, he's by far the second, like, in my opinion, like, I was first, you were second. I'm like, he's the for sure, like, the next best player in this section. Like, there's no way I should have to play him first. Because then I would have had to, like, play for 2 second. I'm like, I want to play Roseth or freaking Sean Kelly first.
Yeah.
So when he went into the coaches meeting, that's what he was like, no, like, this is how it should be. Like, he shouldn't have to play the best person first,
Yeah.
And he ended up getting it right. I don't know how the coaches ended up voting, but how did you see like that like voting situation? Did you pay any attention to that?
As an 8th grader, I was more concerned about like wanting to avoid, because back then Sean Kelly was my kryptonite. Like for
Good
whatever
player.
reason, I just couldn't beat him. Like he was just too solid. Like he just was kind of crafty as well, but like he made a ton of balls. Like I just couldn't beat him. And so I was thinking like, if I get him indoors on the rack, like I like my chances, but like at all costs, like let's try and avoid that. So Demray either said to me like, well, you got to kind of pick here. Like, do you want Sean Kelly or do you want Toivonen? Because I was like, well, maybe on reconsideration, I'll take Sean Kelly. So I think I'd actually played Roseth early in the year and I'd beaten him. So that's how Demray was like, oh, well, we can make Roseth the 4 because you've beaten him, and we can get you Sean Kelly, because that's kind of how it was going to shake out. So I guess I played a small part in it, but like I definitely had the luxury of being like the younger kid, kind of like more the underdog of like going against like all these older kids. Like my only focus was to avoid Sean Kelly at all costs, and I got Sean Kelly, but like it ended up working out, so it's fine.
I hope Chase Roseth watches this, because in that semifinal match when I played Chase, I crushed Chase Roseth. I crushed
So nice.
you, Chase Roseth.
Yeah, I remember that because
6-0,
Sean and
6-0
Chase had played
in
earlier that year
20,
too,
like,
and Sean had
3
beaten him.
minutes.
That's right, because Sean and Chase had played early in the year, and Sean won. So that was another benefit. I was like, I want to play Sean, so that if I beat him, he's probably going to beat Chase and no true second. So like it was the ideal outcome. All I had to do was get past my kryptonite, but thankfully that's what ended up happening.
Kind of being later in your career now, being established, like what's next kind of for you? Like, are you looking at like jobs right now, or you want to play some extra tennis, like past your collegiate career? Like, where are you at with that?
I can safely but sadly say that I am not planning on pursuing pro tennis or like, tennis beyond college. I'm not hanging the rackets up forever, but this will definitely be my last go around of like tennis at anywhere near like a competitive level. I just think that the pro life isn't for me. I really don't think like I'm cut out for it. I just think it's a lot of traveling, a lot of stress, a lot of matches. Like I love competing, and like I'm gonna get involved in a rec league or something for sure. But this is definitely it for me. So right now I'm applying to grad school. I want to go to grad school right away. I'd prefer not to take a gap year. But if I don't get in, obviously I'll find a job. But I'm going to go to try and get my master's in psychology. And then the goal after that would be to get my PhD. So
Awesome.
that's kind of next for me.
That's awesome. So you want to be like a psychologist of some sort, or like
Yeah,
what's in
sports
the card?
psychology. Yeah.
That's sweet.
Cool. Isn't Beatty doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, he's doing something very similar. I've
Yeah.
talked to him a lot about like applications, what to look for. He kind of nudged me towards applying to Michigan, so yeah, gotta thank him for that recommendation. So, if I get in, then go blue.
Michael Schaff asks, what's your favorite class? And he also referenced you as an academic weapon. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Well, Micah, my favorite class got to be Counseling Psych 225, man. Another tennis player actually, who my offer still stands of getting you a case of Wilson U.S. Open tennis balls when you want it. Just for I know. I saw that look. It's like, how do you have access to those? Like, I got a sneaky stash. I got a sneaky stash. Don't worry. We can negotiate. We can negotiate if you're interested. But yeah, that'd be my favorite class right now. Counseling's like 225.
There you go. And Matt, do you want to ask any questions? So like, we're going to be reaching the probably rated PG-13 to R version of the show.
Oh.
So I want to some of the questions that we received, I want to put out there. We're going to talk with Sebo after, make sure they're okay to be posted.
Okay.
But they're very much different questions than the questions that were asked before. Matt, do you have any questions that you want to ask Sebo before we get into that segment?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I got to get my Sebo battle in at some point. I'm just seeing if Sebo is gonna be in the Roch at all over Christmas break, because I don't know. You can ask Beatty, you can ask Jackson, you can ask the boys. Obviously not the same caliber player as you guys, but there is no hiding the fact that I do hit nukes, and so I don't know. I'm thinking I get 3 games, and so I don't know. I think it's a good matchup. I think. Is Sebo better than me off the ground? Yeah. Volleys, yeah. But I'm liking my serve against that return. I don't know. I'm feeling like I'm gonna get a few maybe aces in there, maybe throw in a greasy slice or two. So I don't know. All I'm asking is just for an opportunity to hit some nukes and see what I can do. So
well, I will be in the Roch area. I don't know when yet. Kind of depends on my final exam situation. But you are more than entitled to come get a piece of this. You're more than entitled.
Hell yeah.
I just got to say, I think your confidence is misplaced in that serve, because I have seen it. I'm not saying you have a bad serve at all. You have a very good serve. But I think my return can neutralize any serve out
Fair
there,
enough.
except
And
for maybe
also,
like one that bounces over my head. But
I will also say this too, and I'll give you some credit. So I don't know if you remember this. We have actually played. So I was 16. I think it was my 3rd USTA tournament ever. Okay. And keep in mind, I was a football player until I was 16, so I didn't really play tennis. But I walk out on court and I'm playing. I see this little boy, this little Latino boy. And I look at my dad and I'm like, why is this kid why is this kid playing 16s? He looks like he's 11. And and you probably were like 11. And I remember I sit down, my dad's sitting behind me, and my dad, I'm just like, this kid's like really small. My dad just like looks at me and he shakes his head and he's like, uh-oh. And I do think you won like 1-1. But yeah, I let
you get 2 games. I was being nice that day.
Well, you got to remember, I hit nukes. You know.
Yeah. True.
I couldn't hit a forehand or backhand, but I could hit nukes. But
okay.
But yeah, no, I just thought I'd bring that up. So.
Your offer is graciously accepted, and
awesome.
Here's what I'll do. I'll be super, super generous and courteous. I will text you when I'm back in town, and then you text me when you want to come, and I will move my schedule around to accommodate you.
That's what I'm talking about.
And we can even, if you really want to, we can get like a camera set up. We can, invite a crowd if you really want to give you some extra energy if you need it.
Oh, I need that.
And, my original offer still stands. If you get a game, in one set, college rules, I assume, right?
College rules, One rules. Now you may not know this, but North Dakota is actually also a Division I school.
We played them
So-
last year. We played them, so I do know.
Yeah, and you know what? Gotcha.
I lost. I lost. I lost. Yes, I did.
But
But yeah, college rules. You get one game, and what did I say I would do? I said I'd do something outrageous, and I still stand by that claim.
all right, well, one game. I mean, I
You could just go for 8 first serves, realistically.
yeah. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that's too easy.
I mean, you can try and hit 8 first serves.
All right, one game. I mean, if it's one game, for sure. I'm willing. I want to sweat a little bit though, Sebo.
You want really?
Yeah, let's go. All right, let's go to 2 games.
I don't want to just give out cookies though. You got to earn the right to to come at me and
Alright,
say,
alright,
"Oh,
how
you got to earn
how about-
that." You
how-
don't
how
just
about
get to
this?
do it.
All right, I get the 1. Okay, we rematch. I if I get the 1, then I really got to start training to get 2 games. But yeah, then we do it again 2 games. And
Deal.
then we just keep going. And then
Deal.
if I win a set eventually, then I'll go on the pro tour.
Fair enough. And I'll coach you. I'll coach you if that happens. Free of charge. You won't have to pay for a coach. How about that? I'll pay my own way to all the tournaments too.
Latino and Latino alliance right there.
We just can't go to South America because when I'm coaching you while you're on court, I'll just be speaking like this in rapid Spanish. We can't go to South America, but everywhere else is fine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't understand. I still, for the life of me, can't understand you when you speak Spanish. Fun fact:
I'll slow
Isaac,
it down for you.
Isaac speaks Spanish too, don't you?
What? I did not know that.
Hablo el español. Pasé 4 meses en España, entonces, ¿sí?
¡Ay, chévere!
Sí.
Sí.
¡Ay!
A
Pues
veces
nunca
cuando
sabía.
a veces cuando la gente habla muy rápido es difícil para mí a
Sí, claro.
entenderles, pero puedo comunicarme mis ideas y sí.
Muy bien, muy bien. Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Yeah, I can't believe you didn't know that. Yeah, because
I had no clue. I had no clue.
Isaac, like I grew up, obviously, like my mom's from Honduras, so I grew up speaking Spanish. But Isaac, your mom's a Spanish teacher, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Wow, you learn something new every day.
So yeah, let's transition into that last that last segment of the show. So
Oh boy.
we'll go through our questions. Some of them are good, some of them are definitely awful questions. We'll start from the top. So who do you want to win the World Cup? Ben Myers. We'll start off nice easy question.
Okay, so that's an easy one. So some of you may not know this, but I actually am a dual citizen of the United States and the United Kingdom. So now that the United States is out, unfortunately, I am all aboard the England hype train. So Saturday at 1 p.m., you guys will know how my weekend turned out in about 2 hours. So I am all aboard the England hype train.
I'm not trying to shred you here, but wasn't there kind of like a big rivalry US against England? You just hopped on their boat?
No. So when they played, I was aggressively neutral because
Alright.
I had to watch that with my father. And for those of you who don't know, my father is violently English. You can understand, he's not a violent person, but he's just violently English. And so when I told him I was going to be in the house watching, I was going to be neutral, he didn't exactly take that very well. But I maintained my neutral, and 0-0 was the perfect outcome. The perfect outcome.
There you
And
go.
then they went their respective ways, and I could root for each of them on their way to the final. Sadly, the US is out, so now I'm all in on England. Before I was even 50-50, and now that the US is out, I can be all in on England.
There you
Fair
go.
enough.
All right. So we got Finnegan Shermer or
Okay.
What
Yeah.
a name.
what makes a girl your partner?
Say that again?
What makes a girl your partner? I don't know what that means, but
So what Finnegan is getting at here is, I have made a conscious effort in my life to use gender neutral language when referring to my significant other, because it's more inclusive, and I've been told that that is a healthier way of living. And this is very important to my significant other, my partner. So I thought that it was only right that if it's important to them, I make the conscious effort to change my ways and be more inclusive with my language. So to answer the question, I would say I'm just being more inclusive, and it has nothing to do with their sexual orientation or their gender. It's just being more inclusive.
There you go. I like that answer. Not to put you on the hot seat right after that, but the next question is: as an athlete, what are your thoughts on the Brittany Griner being held in Russia too?
Oh my
Wow. That was quick. That was today that happened.
Speaking of political correctness, what are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Oh wow. Well, let me put it this way. I am. Okay, let's get this right, Sebastian. I am glad that somebody is coming home back to the U.S. I don't know enough about the entire situation to have a very formulated opinion. So I would have to do more research into the topic to have a well-formulated opinion. So all I can say is right now, I'm happy that somebody is able to come home to the U.S. I don't know anything else about like what we gave in exchange or like who we could have brought home instead. Like I'm not well versed in that, so please do not attack me for that. I just am going off literally an ESPN notification that I got. I didn't even click on it. So
yeah,
that's all I got to say about that. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And at TWI, we're not political in any way. We go both ways. But
exactly.
The person that we did trade Brittany Griner for does have a movie about him.
No way.
Yeah. So I don't know if the trade was that equal if the other person has a whole movie about him. But you know what? There's nothing like getting someone back. So I'm all for it.
I'm sure the situation is way more complicated than just a simple swap.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure there's tons more going on that we don't know about. So
I completely agree. So next question, easy question here. What are sports about?
What are sports about? Oh wow. I would say it depends on what level of sport. If you are a professional athlete, sports are about a way of living because that's your income. That is what you do. That is what you dedicate your whole life to. So I would say it's a way of life at a professional level. At a collegiate level, it's about making connections and developing yourself as a athlete and as a person, whether that's through your schoolwork or through your interactions with your coaches and teammates or the interactions with your community. So that is that. And then at the high school and youth level, it's about having fun and making memories and trying new things and failing more and failing again and then some more and then having some success. So I would say it depends on the level.
There you go. All right, we'll try to go rapid fire. We got a bunch more questions. We should try to get them done a little bit quicker. Hopefully we can fit everything in. So have you ever played the game the game FMK? Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
All right, so Jackson Allen, Vlad
I don't like where
Lobach,
this is going.
and Dylan Heap.
Jackson Allen, Dylan Heap, and who?
Vlad Lobach.
Oh, jeez. Oh God. I think I gotta. Oh my Lord.
That's a tough one.
Who submitted this?
Anonymous.
Oh God. Oh no. Okay, let me think about this in the most diplomatic way I can. So I'm gonna marry Dylan Heap because I think like him and I are very similar, and so I think we'd get along very well, and we just have like a raucous time. So that's done. Oh,
Tough after that.
purely okay. Here's what I'll say. Purely because I don't think that they would be into it like at all. I will kill. No, I will. Okay, final answer. I'm gonna F Jackson and kill Vlad. That's final answer.
I was like, there's no way you can kill Jackson.
No, I just can't do it. I'm
You
sorry.
can't do that to
I'm
Jackson.
sorry. I can't do it.
There you go. All right. David Youngs asks, what do the Badgers need to do to reclaim the axe?
Oh boy. Sink the boat. That's the short answer.
There you go.
Sink the boat. And actually make them throw the damn football. How about that?
Yeah.
Make them throw the damn football.
There might be a question from left field, maybe throwing a little shade at you. Fetty asks, how Latino do you consider yourself?
How Latino do I consider myself?
More than Fetty.
I mean, well, my mother is born and raised in Venezuela. I grew up speaking Spanish. She made sure of that. I still have family that I just went to visit this past summer in Venezuela. So I think I'm not like 100%, obviously, but like I would say it's a part of my identity. So if you want a percentage, I'll say 50%. Yeah, because I'm 50% English and 50% Venezuelan by birth. So 50%. There you go.
Heck yeah. And we're gonna top it off. We're gonna end the interview with this question. It's probably the greatest question I think I've ever received. I don't know how you're gonna respond to it, but legit cow 3 responds.
No way.
You have 3 butts up serves, right? 3 butts up serves. You have the Gophers AD, Hokey, and Tsitsipas. So you got the Gophers AD, Mateo, and Tsitsipas. Who you hitting?
Great question,
boy.
Cal. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Purely because he's never done anything personally to me, Tsitsipas can just go home. Like, I would love to hit him, but given what the other 2 have done, you just got to throw Tsitsipas away.
We're going to put me on the same pedestal as the Gophers AD.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I just am eliminating it in tiers.
All right,
you know?
all right, that's fair enough.
Like Tsitsipas probably doesn't even know I exist, whereas you, on the other hand, have the nerve to open your mouth about me. So I got to deal with that.
Yeah. All right, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I got to go all 3 at Mark Coyle. I got it. Like, there's just you're off the hook this time.
Yeah, we'll see you in a couple weeks, buddy.
Yeah, yes, you will. You will see all of me in about 2 weeks.
Well, Sebo, that will. I appreciate you coming on, man. It's just super fun to shoot the shit with you and just kind of talk. But yeah, this was super good. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed shooting the shit with you guys and reminiscing about high school tennis and all that jazz. It was great. I really like the fact that you still remember that match. I know I will never forget it for many, many reasons. So, always good to hear it.
Do up diddling ding dong day. Do up diddling.